Hey, Intro Engineering Design, I have for you guys the second half of that lecture about the life cycle, the product life cycle, the life cycle analysis information, and here's in Canvas, here's the assignment. I've got a link to the Google Sheet version of the inventory analysis, and that's the link here and takes you up to this Google Sheet document. So if you are the kind of person who would like to just copy that and edit it for the things I've asked you to edit for, and then submit the links, go for it. Or if you're the kind of person who'd rather write it out and has the ability to take pictures or scan it back in later, here's a link for the PDF version of it, which is, you can print it out. It doesn't have this stuff here, so it's blank, so you can fill in your name instead of having to like white it out or something. I also have a link to the PDF of the slides from this lecture, all the slides that were in here, all the way back up to the top, down through where we're at here, okay? This is where the video is going to be. This video and the other one. And I have this video of someone taking apart a mag slider lid that I've linked, and that way you guys can see the parts to it if you have to. It shows how this slidey thing comes off. That slidey thing's got a magnet in it. There's a magnet in the lid. There is a hard plastic lid. And around the outside of that lid, there's like a rubber sealy thing, so when you push it down, it makes a seal. And you have to figure out how many parts are in the base. Is it double wall? Does that mean it's two, or is it one part with like a plug on the bottom? How's it put together? Do a little bit of research. Do your best. I'm not going to fuss about it again. But let's take a look at this right here. Okay. So the first thing you do with an inventory analysis template is you're going to put your name, product name, and the date at the top of it. So let's go. I'm going to do an inventory analysis of just like a regular old plastic Walmart bag. Now my whole pile's shifting. So I called it a plastic grocery bag, and it's completed by me. Put the date on it. It's Saturday. And so what you're going to do after you put your name and the date and the product on it, so you would have one that's going to say plastic cup, just disposable plastic cup, and you'll have one that says the Yeti tumbler. You can just call it Yeti tumbler. That's less to write. So after you do that, notice let me show you the blank one again. There are these points here that are sort of assigned as you go in. That'll help you make a value and calculate a value at the end there. These values are kind of arbitrary right now. They're not actual values that would be used in industry. If you were actually working for a company, they would have ways to measure the energy in, the energy out, how much electricity is used, how much fresh water goes in that you're then dirtying or contaminating with your process, any other inputs, outputs of raw materials, emissions, waste product, and how that's disposed. Like all that stuff, all that information, they're going to have values assigned to it that are not the same values in here. This is just for an exercise in sort of thinking about all the different ways that a product's life can impact the environment. Like for example, if I make my plastics out of recycled plastic, that number is going to be smaller than if I need brand new kinds of plastic. Or if I'm using plastic that can't be recycled, that's going to change my numbers. If I'm transporting materials in from the next state over, that's going to cost less. It's going to have less emissions as you drive the truck across state lines versus like flying it in from China or from India or Pakistan or some other location that takes a lot more fossil fuel and puts a lot more carbon back in the atmosphere. So again, these values are kind of arbitrary, but it'll kind of give you a feel for what's going on here and sort of how people make some sort of meaningful quantity, a numerical quantity representing the impact on the environment. First thing after you put your name on it is the raw material extraction place. This is where you put all kinds of different kinds of materials like metals, plastics, fabrics, wood, all that material. The raw materials, you list them out, 1 point for each type of material. And so on my plastic bag, it's made of plastic. That's it. If I were an overachiever, which I used to be, I can be still if I'm not careful, I would go back and say, okay, what's this plastic? I'd find a little recycling symbol at the bottom, and I'd say, okay, what's this recycling number? What's it mean? What type of plastic is it? What goes into it? What kind of raw materials does it take? The crude oil out of the ground? What goes into it? I'd actually go and list that. It might be more than one. But for my purposes, it's made of plastic. That's good enough for me. I'm going to put a total point of 1 down at the bottom because that's the only line I've filled in, 1 point. There's my total point for the raw material. Okay? All right, next. Materials processing. If you have metals, if you have plastics, list them again in the material processing because those things have been processed. They obviously don't come out of the ground looking like that. They don't come out of nature. They've been processed before you can actually use them. So materials processing, I've relisted my plastic. That's 1 point. All right. Manufacturer, list all the components or parts. So if you have something that's complicated like the pencil we had before, this had 20 parts, it's going to be 20 points. I know they're all made of, some of them are made of the same material, but each piece has to be made, right? Every single part needs to be constructed. So there's just the bag for the plastic bag. I mean, it's not like it's got extra things attached to it. Yes, it has different designation. Like you can tell there's a place that that's where the handle meets the rest of the bag. But the handle on the bag, it's like one continuous part. It has not been sewn together. It has not been welded together. It's not been attached in any way together. That's all. It's just the bag. Packaging. Determine how the product is packaged and choose the option that corresponds to the product. Now, plastic bags are packaging in and of themselves, but when they arrive, like at the store, if you've ever seen someone reloading the plastic bag chunks at Walmart or at Kroger or wherever you all shop for your groceries or for anything really, if you see someone taking those bags don't just come off the truck as a pile of bags. They come in a box, so they have cardboard box. If there's more than one type, I can choose more than one option. Like if I know that an item is packaged like with plastic surrounding it and there's a window cut out of a cardboard box, so it's got plastic and cardboard involved. Maybe it's got like rubber things inside holding it together. Maybe it's got like some of the children's toys these days. They have like an extra plastic piece that you twist and it releases instead of having twisty ties. So, there's all kinds of ways you can think about packaging. But my bag is just in a cardboard box. If you want to get technical, you might consider the fact that they're all held together with the bunch at the top, and then as you pull them off, that bunch remains behind. I guess I could have given it 15 points, 10 points, but I didn't. All right, distribution. When a product is complete, it must be distributed. And the only options it gives you are, yes, it's been distributed, transported somewhere for 15 points, or no, it hasn't for 1 point. Why wouldn't no be 0? At the very least, if I'm going to a store to buy something, even if it was complete, like maybe it's produce grown at that farm, maybe they picked it out of the window box, they didn't have to put it on a truck, they didn't have to use a tractor, nothing. I'm still going to drive my car over there, probably, load up and drive back home again. So that's probably why that's a 1 and not a 0. All right. Utilization. This is just kind of how long do you use it for? What's the lifespan look like? How much time, how much usage do I get out of the product? And yes, I might reuse my plastic baggies to carry other stuff. I might use them as like a doggy bag to pick doggy doo-doo off the ground or something. I might use it to wrap up a dirty diaper and throw it away. I might use it in some sort of art project, or my kids might have something come up like, hey, we want to talk about recycling and reusing, and I'll be like, yeah, you can reuse my plastic bags. But realistically, most people just use it once. That's it. Just one time for the plastic baggie here. I definitely am not going to be using this plastic baggie 5 years from now. The way they make them these days, they're so thin and flimsy that they fall apart real easily, so I'm not going to have the same plastic bags 5 years down the road. All right. And then disposal. What happens to the product at the end of its useful life? So what happens? Technically, I could recycle this bag. I'm going to dump my trash out of it. Let's see. The recycle tag, it's got a 2 in it. I don't know if you can see that. I'd have to Google what that means, but I can recycle the entire bag. I can put it in the recycling bin at the Walmart or wherever I don't even know if they have one at the Walmart, wherever they have recyclables, wherever they take up recyclables, if they recycle plastic number 2, I can recycle the whole thing. However, I was like, you know what? Logistically speaking, most people are going to throw away the bags. So I averaged out 15 and 0. I made 7.5. I'm a stickler for not everyone's going to throw this thing in the recycling. Some people are going to like go to the Walmart and they're going to drop it. It's going to fall out of the car. It's going to fly out of a trash can, end up in a tree or the bushes or the ocean. You know, they're not going to, not every person's going to put all of their plastic baggies into a recycling container. All right. So I average those because I can't just say, yes, obviously none of my plastic bags are going to be thrown away in a landfill. They're all going to be recycled. I can't say that. Honestly, I can't say that. I know it's not true. If you're doing this on paper, at this point, well, hold on. So the impact analysis is what I'm going to start talking about next. We've already put in numbers for all the different materials, the inventory analysis. So now we're going to go ahead, and the two things for the input in the impact analysis are find the sum of all the values of each step, and then find the sum of all the steps. And if you've been doing this sum of each as you go, like the raw material extraction, I went and put that 1 down there. So that was that first step there in that slide. Find the sum of the values for each of the steps. And if you're doing this by hand, then you're going to go and say, okay, I'm going to add 1, I'm going to add 1, I'm going to add 1, that's 3, 3 and 5 is 8, and 15 is 23, and 15 is 38, and 7.5 is 45.5. So you can add it up with in your head like I did, or write it out, or use a calculator, up to you. And then you'll get your total right there. Now, if you're using the Excel thing, or the Google Sheets, it's just like Excel. It's using a formula here to add the sum of all those little boxes. And so it uses equals sum, parentheses, and then it calls upon B63, for example, which is, 63, B63. It calls upon B56, sorry. B56 is this one. So it calls on all those things. So as you fill it in the Excel or the spreadsheet here in the Google Sheet, it's going to add up. Like if I had changes to 0, that would be a 38. 7.5 is kind of my honest answer, 45.5. So that's that second step there, to find the sum of all the steps, the second line here. And that either it does it automatically in the sheet, or you can do it by adding it up. It's not going to be very difficult. Okay, cool. My plastic baggie, the number based on the values that this gives me, my impact is 45.5. Okay. What's it mean? How can you use it to improve the design? Well, obviously, if you want to have a low impact, you're going to want a low number. So think about things like, man, 15 is a big number. 15 is like a third of this, almost. No, not quite, but yeah, it's a lot, right? If I can make my product usable for 5 years, I get 5 points off. If I can make it used and last for 10 years, I get only 5 points in here. If I can whittle down my transportation, I can get down to 1 perhaps. Here, get rid of 14 of those points. That'd be neat. Maybe I can have no packaging. Maybe I can just ship them like as a bundle on the back of a truck. You know. So that's how you use that number. You say, look, I gotta bring that down. All right, so since we're doing a comparison, I'm gonna do an example real quick of like a cooler bag. You know, the ones that they sell that are reusable. They've got, it's a refrigerated bag, but it's a cooler bag. I have this cooler bag. It's, my mom got it for me. I think it's like a Food Network or Rachel Ray or something that, you know, my mother does that sort of thing. She buys me weird stuff. She buys me things that she likes for herself, but she buys like 2 of them, so I get one as well, which I guess it's nice. So this thing, it's blue, it's large, it's got a zipper across the top, it's got like a fabric outer shell. So when I went through the more materials, I'm thinking it's got this fabric outer, and the handles are made of fabric, and it's sewn together. That's a fabric. It's got some metal because it's got a zipper across the top. That's a metal zipper, so it's got some metal in it of some sort. There's plastic. There's like a plastic layer on the inside and the lining that everything sits against. Cotton. There's definitely some cotton material like in between the 2 layers for insulation. I noticed there's a second type of plastic. Second type of plastic. I think the second type of plastic is in it was like a tag or something, I forget. And then the other metal I put in, I said, you know what, there's actually a metallic layer with that plastic and the fluff between, for the insulation layer. And there's also like a rubberized bottom, so I have rubber there. So I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I had 7 raw materials. 2 kinds of plastic. I'm assuming they're different because they serve different purposes. 2 kinds of metal, cotton, fabric, rubber. My materials processing, I put all the metals and plastics and the rubbers back in there. That's 1, 2, 3, or 5 different materials to process. That's not counting if I have to process that fabric, because it didn't say to put fabric in the materials processing. I didn't do it. But really, fabric is processed too. I mean, it starts out as cotton or sheep's wool or some synthetic plastic that they have to then turn into a fabric through lots of processes. Manufacturing. My bag has an outer layer. It's got the insulation layer. It's got a liner. It's got a zipper. It's got handles that are sewn on. It's got Velcro tabs, and the Velcro tab is like on the bottom and on the side of it, because when you're not using it, the idea is you lay it flat and fold it, and then fold the bottom up so it sticks to the Velcro. They stick to each other, and it takes up less space. It's got an outer pocket that's sewn on. It's got a rubberized outside bottom part. It's got like a tag sewn onto it. It's got a lot of parts. I stopped there because I had that's 8 parts. It's 8 parts. Yeah, packaging. It's got to be put in a cardboard box. It's most likely a cardboard box. And yes, it's got to be transported. But I can use it for. I've had the one that I have, the blue one I'm thinking of, the Rachel Ray one. I've had it for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, maybe 12 years now. And disposal. I'm assuming parts of it can be recycled. Like you could probably pull out some of those materials and recycle them. Like the metals, maybe, because metal you can always take out apart and melt it down again and make sure it's pure again and get out impurities. But some of it's going to have to be thrown away, because I don't think you can recycle all those parts. At least the way that they're melded together in some ways, you can't get them apart necessarily. So my analysis, 50 points. That's more than my plastic bag analysis. Where did I have extra points? I had a lot more points with the different kinds of materials that went into it, and the fact that I had to process most of those, and the different parts that have to be manufactured and then assembled together. I saved points in package. No, I didn't. That's the same. I saved points in utilization, and I saved some points in disposal because I just counted that most people who have this kind of bag probably will recycle it at some point. But I mean, that's a larger number than my plastic baggie. Is that possible? Is that something that'll happen? Yes, it actually happens in real life. People will make products and they'll say this is better for the environment because you're not doing this, this, or this. But they don't tell you that perhaps while they're making this product, they use a lot more natural, fresh resources like water as they're processing the materials, the 5 or 6 materials that have to go into them. They use a lot more electricity creating things. They have factories burning stuff and smoke comes out. They have a lot of emissions. You get a solar panel on your house, and some of the early ones, they would leach out lead and other heavy metals into the environment around your house. I mean, they fixed some of these problems, yes, and they're continuing to improve technology, but like the first generation solar panels were not necessarily any better for the environment than using any other way that we generate electricity, like coal power or anything like that. So this whole, be aware as a consumer, even if you don't go into industry, be aware that when someone's marketing something to you and they tell you, oh, it's great for the environment, they might not be telling you the whole picture. They may be selecting in what way is it better for the environment. Well, you're not throwing it out 100 times a year. You're using it for the entire year, Yeah, I'm not throwing out dozens and dozens of plastic baggies, but I mean, look at all the material that went into this thing. All right. The last step that I think I had y'all do is talk about the improvement. Is there a way to make some changes to the product? And you can just be creative, because you don't necessarily need to know whether it's plausible or possible to make these changes, or whether there's any sort of trade-off in these changes, because, obviously, if I change something about how it's made, I might change the quality or performance of my product. But just imagine here that I make some changes to my baggie. And I did one real quick. I said I listed over here my changes. I said I'm not going to have a rubberized bottom. I don't really need that. It's going to sit in my car. It's going to sit on my kitchen floor, and I'm not going to have it reinforced or anything on the bottom. And I'm only going to use one type of plastic, so I know that I'm not going to have to use that in the processing over here. So there's no rubber, only one plastic. I saved 2 points there. I saved 2 points right there. I'm not going to put a pocket. I'm not going to put a rubberized bottom. I'm not going to have any Velcro. That's 3 parts I can get rid of. So I go from 8 to 5 here. I said I'm going to use the same packaging. That doesn't change. The same distribution. I'm still going to have to ship it. I mean, and realistically, I could probably change where my factory is located and change my my shipment to maybe all electric cars if that's more environmentally friendly. I'm going to have the same usage. I don't know the numbers on that, so I'm not going to change that. I'm not going to change that. And I'm going to try to make sure all of my product is recyclable, that there's a way to break it down into its components and reuse and recycle as much as possible. So that brings me down to 38, which is much better. That's a great improvement off of the 50 it was. So think about that when you think about this Yeti Rambler. I've linked this video so you can sort of see how many parts there are when he takes it apart and how it goes together. You can do some research as to what materials, like how many, are there more than one kind of metal? What's the magnet made out of? What are magnets made out of? Do a little bit of research. Don't stress about it though. Like, don't go and spend 5 hours on this. This video is long enough as is. So do an analysis for the Yeti Rambler. Do analysis for just a plastic cheapo cup. And I think that's everything I was going to say. Y'all have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.